Hey up, and how we all doing? Just a few points I'd like to go over tonight. I'll probably start off with I think it was 170 million pound has been earmarked on it for security in mosques around the country, and I think 70 million for synagogues and for Jewish people. Um, is it actually needed? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, there's been a lot of obviously vocal hatred going around, but I've not really seen any actual evidence. I know recently there was a pig's head thrown through somebody's window of a Muslim family in Blackburn, and that is terrible. Don't get me wrong. I mean, even I eat pig, but even I won't want a bloody pig's head coming through my window. That's not nice, is it? Um, for anybody. But I mean, it's a one-off. I'm not trying to minimise it for the family that's happened to. It's obviously awful, but it's not. I don't think there's actual widespread violence. The same with Jewish people. There's been a few isolated incidents that we've seen. People being attacked or having things shouted at them on trains, but I've not seen any like actual incidents of major actual violence. And I don't want to minimise people's feelings, obviously, because you can feel intimidated, and that's not nice at all. But the reality is feeling intimidated, but actually being under threat of danger are two different things. So I'm just trying to give a bit of balance there. And I wonder if some of it is probably that the Tories are just absolutely in panic mode because of what's been happening. And also, like I've said, I mean, maybe some of it as well is trying to um, normalise Islam in the UK. Do a bit of normalisation and try and bring Islam into the fold of the wider British mythos, so to speak. I know it's quite a nebulous and vague term, but for now I can't really think of a better way of wording it. I think that's good enough way to give the general sentiment of what I'm trying to get across with that. Not that I'm saying that there aren't Muslims who don't feel like they're part of Britain or the mythos of Britain, um, but there surely are plenty who don't. I mean, there's plenty of British people who don't. We see them all the time. White people on the telly protesting. The Tarquins and the Kenneths and the Sebastians, who are in London on mummy and daddy's money, aren't they? And they hate Britain and everything it stands for and are ashamed of being British. At least when the friends are around and it scores them social validation points anyway. But enough of that. Another point as well. I mentioned this. I think it was last week or possibly the week before about defections to Reform UK. This very very significant because it's Lee Anderson as well. So he's a bit of a well-known name in whether you like him or not. I'm not getting into him or his politics or what I actually think of him, but he's obviously a known name. It would be like Jacob Rees-Mogg going across or Suella Braverman. Don't be surprised if either of them. Well, maybe not Jacob Rees-Mogg. I think he's a bit too traditional and he's too much loyalty. But don't be surprised if Suella Braverman goes across. I think we're going to see. There's rumours of another 9 from the north of England uh, in serious talks for going over as well, allegedly. But I'll be surprised if we see all 70 or 80 or whatever it is from the Red Wall quickly moving over to Reform UK and then becoming a serious contending party, at least until the next general election. Now, my view, I just to put my cards on the table, I will be voting for Reform, not because I think Reform are necessarily a great choice or a long-term commitment for me. I see them as a vehicle to moving the Overton window and getting politics to more of a position where I want it to go to. And I would advise anybody else who's absolutely sick of the Tories, can't stand Labour, think the Lib Dems are a bunch of spineless traitors, etc., etc. Vote Reform, not because they are the best choice. They're better than what's on offer. I think they're one of the only realistic, credible alternatives at the moment. But as I say, I do think that if they either get in enough so they've got a significant even minority of seats, or even if they don't really get any seats, but they absolutely just destroy the Tories and we end up with the Tories having almost no seats, let's just say Labour get 100% of all seats, it's going to move the Overton window massively. And the Overton window is, for those who don't know, is a phrase meaning what's permissible to talk about in a political sense. And it can get wider, it can get smaller, it can move around. For example, a good example of a different Overton window will be South Africa, where it's okay for the political people, the leaders, to go on stage and sing songs about killing the white farmers, and committing genocide against minorities. Their Overton window is obviously in a different place to ours because And nor would I condone that in this country, but we obviously cannot go on stage singing about killing minorities, and nor should we. Just to be very, very clear with that, we absolutely should not be going on stage singing about killing anybody in that regard. So just to be clear, but just to explain that for you, you know. So yeah, so we had Lee Anderson going over another 9. Again, don't be surprised if there's any more happening with that. So we've also seen today Tommy Robinson has been freed from court today. I do believe that the judge actually did want him to sentence him today, but I don't know the full details of it. I've only seen very brief video of him outside talking to the camera. It does appear that the judge has actually ruled against the police officer for taking him in. Again, I don't know many of the details. Now, I don't know how I feel about it because his bail conditions are very clear that he's not to go into London without permission. He only has one point of contact for that, though, which is I think he's called PC Shah. He's a Muslim police officer. I don't know if that's been done intentionally or not. It does seem a little bit on the nose. I find it very strange that there's only one police officer can make the decision for him, though. One point of contact. I also find his bail conditions. I mean, the whole thing about him getting arrested was very strange. Anyway, he was having breakfast. Now the police could. I believe they said he was there with intent to do other stuff, but at the end of the day, he was sat down having breakfast. There was like 20 officers dragged him away. I mean, literally 20 police officers dragged him away. He got pepper sprayed as well in the face when he was fully restrained. You know, so it was overly excessive on how they arrested him. And I do believe that the bail conditions are unreasonable. Now, I could understand it if the bail conditions were specifically not to go into London on days when there was Palestine-Israel style protests, because that was the sort of circumstances under which he was arrested. But he's not allowed into London at all, anywhere within the M25. It seems rather excessive, that, and I'm wondering about whether it's lawful or not. And he does seem to be getting penalised, whether you like him or not. But again, I mean, this is what I've said before. I mean, should you follow unlawful or unjust rules and laws? You know what I mean? If the police passed a law saying I know they would never do this, but just to be hyperbolous, if they passed a law saying you are not allowed to breathe, obviously you're going to breathe. You know, that would just be ridiculous. So somewhere between not being allowed to breathe and the police restricting you from a very, very small area, somewhere in between those 2 points, you cross over a boundary of bail conditions being unreasonable. Now, where that point is, obviously, I'm not a legal expert. I can't say that. But I do think his bail conditions are beyond the reasonable side of what you would accept as being in acceptable terms of his bail conditions. And I do wonder if it's partly to do with the fact that he is Tommy Robinson. Anyway, that's a question for another time. I've not really wanted to get into anything in particular. I was just talking about a few bits that I've seen in the news that I thought were quite interesting and people might like to hear about. And if you've got any further points that you'd like to add to that, you know, put us a comment down below. I'm definitely open to people's opinions on some of those things or any other topics that you might have seen. If I see anything else, I'll post another video after this. Anyway, take care. Goodbye.